Welcome. Hi from England.
And then just as a heads up to everyone, I have just enabled the recording. So we are now being recorded in addition to the live on Facebook, which it looks like is working. Oh, and that's good. It puts my little hour portraits up in the corner, so it doesn't overlay any of the real information there.
Oh, good.
Fantastic.
Okay. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So glad to see you. So glad you could come on a Saturday. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So I think we'll give it, let's call it 5-ish minutes starting now, and then we will go ahead and start. And inevitably somebody will come in, right at the end and say, oh, I thought it was, this hour or that hour. Oh, well, it wasn't.
It happens. Oh, for sure. So we got one state. We got Utah. Where are you based, Matthew?
I'm actually based here in St. Cloud.
All right, 2 states, Utah and Minnesota. Help us out. Participants, where are you hailing from today?
I feel like I recognize at least one more name, but maybe it's my imagination. Michelle, while we're on the subject, what part of England are you based
in? So I live in Manchester, which is northwest England.
Gotcha.
Yeah, which is actually a great town. It's flat, so it's great to cycle. It's cheaper than most cities in the United States. And it's got a pretty good art scene, like cultural stuff going on, art house, cinema, just different kind of things to attend. So it's nice to be out here. Yeah.
Most of my my understanding of English cities has been shaped by English Premier League.
Okay.
Big soccer fans here. Yeah. So are you you live in Manchester? Are you a City or United fan? Or neither?
I haven't been to a single game yet. I watched
wow.
I watched the World Cup. I really enjoy like the big ones, but I can't get to the level of English Premier. I don't have enough time, I guess.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Welcome, Maria. Thanks for sharing. I did play soccer as a kid, and I absolutely loved the Ted Lasso show. Like,
oh yeah.
It's not that I'm like a no soccer person, but
yeah. One, it's hard. I mean, it's it's COVID, and then on top of that, it's just pricey. A lot of these.
Yes.
So not at all easy to get into.
I met somebody in Brussels whose friend has a season ticket. So it's kind of one of those like, oh, if you have a friend who doesn't want to use their season ticket, then maybe you can go to a weekday game if you're ready to just last minute. And I was like, okay. It will happen soon though. I definitely want that to happen before I
Yeah, and
leave.
it's hard because the best games are going to be the ones that people do want to attend and aren't going to give away their tickets.
Yeah. There's a women's team. I've seen one of their games, a friendly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't hear about them.
Yeah. It doesn't make its way onto Peacock or wherever we're watching the big ones.
Right. Yep. But that's also why it's easier to get tickets. So, yeah.
All right. I think we might get a few more people that jump in as we go. But this seems like a good time to start if you're ready.
Excellent. I will. Oops. Can you unshare, please, Matthew?
Yep. I will drop the share. It is all you.
Yep. And there we go. Okay, hi guys. My name is Michelle Deeter. I'm a translator, an interpreter, a teacher, and a proofreader. So I do a lot of different jobs. But to simplify it, you could say I'm a freelancer that does stuff with Chinese. Can anybody who's listening guess where I'm from just based on my accent, or you came on time and so you read the slide? Please unmute yourself and tell me where you think I'm from. Where was I born?
Because it's a webinar, I might have to individually allow people to speak through the little participant screen.
Or just throw it in the chat. If you don't like speaking as much, I totally understand. What country do you think I'm from? Do I sound like I'm from Canada? Do I sound like I'm from Australia?
I will say that as a person who's visited Canada, you could probably pass if you tried to lay it on thick.
We got to guess. Yes, thank you for guessing. I live in England right now, and maybe my accent is starting to sway in that mid-Atlantic twang, but I was born in the United States, spent 0 to 18 in the United States. So I'm used to that teaching system, that college system, all of that. I started learning Chinese when I was 18. I absolutely fell in love with the language and I could not get enough of it. And then I started working, like using Chinese to be able to work when I moved to China to teach English. I taught English for 1 year, and then I was an executive secretary at a software company for 1 year. And all of my colleagues were Chinese then. So that was when my Chinese really got good. But I will mention, even though it's harder to learn Chinese if you can't have that environment where everybody around you is speaking Chinese, I found that even living in Europe now, there's always a Chinatown. There's always somebody who's willing to speak Chinese if you're just a little bit brave. So don't be afraid. Practice Chinese whenever you see the opportunity. So while I was in China, I decided to do a master's in translation and interpreting. I kind of wanted to get professional. And the master's program that looked the best for me was in the United Kingdom. And the rest is history. I just ended up staying in this country. Where did I start learning Chinese? At Carleton College. Does anybody know where Carleton College is located? You have a 1 in 50 chance of getting this. So go ahead and raise your hand if you want to be unmuted, or throw it in the chat. Where's Carleton College?
And Michelle, I will add, not to be confused with Carleton University, which is
Yes.
a very different place in Canada that my dad attended, and then constantly gets confused for the cool Carleton College.
Fair enough.
We've got
we
another guess.
Missouri. It's still open. It is an M state. It is not Missouri. Where is Carleton College? Minnesota. Woohoo! All right. So I did get a chance to live in China for 2 years, but like I said, whether you're living in the United States, in China, or in Europe, there's always Chinese people everywhere. Just takes a little bit of guts to ask someone. So if I see a stranger on the street that I think speaks Chinese, I usually say, 你好，你会说中文吗？我可以跟你练习吗？ And then I'm off to the races. That's really all I do to make sure that I get time to practice, because I am not a speaker who has like family members I can practice with. Always got to find ways to actively speak. And that's the thing for everybody. Once you get over the kind of weirdness of speaking to a stranger for no reason except to practice Chinese, it's not that bad. So one of the main jobs that I do is translator. Sometimes that's serious documents like a marriage certificate or a birth certificate. Maybe it's a technical document like a scientific article. And sometimes it's a book. So what I was hoping to do was read a little excerpt of a crime fiction book that I translated. I was hoping that we would have perhaps some people read with me. We might have to ask Matt to read with me then. Unless we have a volunteer who's super excited. Does anybody want to read the blue boxes, which are English? Let me know. I would be more than happy for someone to read with me. We'll take turns. Green, blue, green, blue.
For a second there, I was flashing back to my 2 semesters of Chinese in undergraduate. I was thinking, oh no, don't make me read the pinyin.
No. I just need somebody else to read the blue. Are you okay to do that for me, Matt?
I am okay to do that for you.
All right, well, we'll keep things moving along then.
Absolutely.
So I'll read the whole green box and then you can read that blue box. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay. 你要不是吃完饭没事干，哪会记得给家里打电话？妻子抱怨。Oh, just really quick as background. Every single time I forget. We are reading from an excerpt of a book called The Untouched Crime. Our main character is Luo Wen. He's a detective. He is on a business trip in Beijing, and his wife is based in Hangzhou, and she lives there with their daughter, and a dog. So they're on the phone right now, and Luo Wen is the man in this conversation, and the woman is just called Qizi. We don't know her name in this conversation. Okay, let me start over. 你要不是吃完饭没事干，哪会记得给家里打电话？妻子抱怨。洛文笑道：“事情多嘛，没办法。”这可不是理由。妻子戳破他的谎言。这2个月，你一共给家里打过几个电话？不可能天天都这么忙吧？你心里就没想到我们。
All right. And then I will read the blue, right? You only think to call us when you've had your dinner and you don't know what to do, she complains. I'm really busy. I couldn't call more even if I wanted to, Luo said sweetly. That's no excuse. She wasn't going to let him off so easily. How many times have you called in the last 2 months, huh? You can't be that busy every single day. I know what the problem is. You're not even thinking of us.
洛文连忙道歉：“好，我会注意，我以后一定改。”你认错每次都很积极，妻子说：“那是应该的，虚心接受组织批评嘛。”
I'll try to be better. I will. I'll make sure to call you more and think of you more, Luo said. You're so quick to apologize, she said. Of course I am. It's good to humbly accept criticism.
哼，我跟你说，女儿生病了，生什么病了？感冒了，还发烧。去医院看过了吗？
She tutted. Listen, our little angel isn't feeling very well. she said in a more serious tone. She's sick? She's got a cold and a fever. Did you take her to the hospital?
晚上开始发烧的，吃了退烧药，好些了。明天我请假带她去医院。那好的，洛文叮嘱道，最好就配点药，不要打抗生素，长期打抗生素，免疫系统。妻子就打断他，知道啦，你的这些理论从孩子一生下来到现在，中间就没停过。
She started having a fever a few hours ago, and I gave her a fever reducer, and she felt better after that. Tomorrow I'll take her to the hospital. I'll need to take a day off work. Good, Luo said. He couldn't help but give advice. Try to get some medicine, but not antibiotics. Taking too many antibiotics isn't good for her immune system. I know, she said, interrupting him. Stop nagging. You've told me all this medical stuff ever since the baby was born, and I know it backwards and forwards now.
洛文尴尬的笑笑，我这年纪正稳步迈入更年期，难免话多，请多谅解。妻子嗤笑道：“对了，你到底什么时候能回来？你刚走时，孩子经常问，最近孩子都没提过你了。”
Luo tried to cover up his mistake with an awkward laugh. I'm getting old, honey. It makes me talk too much. Please forgive me. When are you coming home? It's been so long. Our little angel used to ask about you all the time, but lately she hasn't been talking about you at all. Her teasing was gentle, but it still hurts.
Oh. Round of applause for our reader, Matthew. So this is just a little excerpt, but it shows how when you do kind of a literary translation, you get to be more creative. The focus is on the storytelling. So we might make little tweaks so that it sounds very natural, so that the dialogue sounds believable. We want Luo Wen to sound like a real person, and we want his wife to sound like a person who loves him but teases him all the time. And so there's lots of little changes that we can see here. Again, if you have a question or a comment just from this reading right now that you would like to mention, go ahead, throw it in the chat or raise your hand. I'm happy to cover any specific thing that you've seen there. The first thing I want to mention is names, okay? So in Chinese, we hear Luo Wen, Luo Wen, Luo Wen every single time, the full name, whether it's 2 characters or 3. But that's not so common in English. In a crime novel, we might just hear the last name of the detective. So that's what I went for here. And because the wife is the only one talking, I didn't say his wife, his wife, his wife. I just put she. That's the only person in the conversation. That makes it sound more natural. Another person's name who we don't get is the daughter, okay? In sentence 7, 女儿生病了. We certainly can't just write daughter is sick because it wouldn't be natural for a mom and dad to be like, daughter is sick, just so you know. But we have options. So we could have her name. I could ask the author, does she actually have a name, please? We can say our daughter. If we add the pronoun, that's a little bit better. But also, if she's someone that's really sweet, maybe the parents would just say our little angel. Or if she's getting into trouble a lot, our little troublemaker, our little rascal. Okay, so I decided to give her this nickname, our little angel, because she's seen as perfect at this age. She's very good. Then right below that in sentence 8, 生什么病了? If we did a straight translation, it would be what disease, what illness does she have? And that sounds super awkward. To me, that doesn't sound like how a normal person would talk. So I switched it a lot. Once the mother says, our little angel isn't feeling very well, we can guess that Luo Wen is surprised. He's on a business trip. He doesn't know what's happening at home. So he can just say, she's sick? And that's how we dealt with that sentence. Another really tricky one is back in sentence 2. Okay, 洛文笑道，事情多嘛，没办法. 没办法 is a super useful phrase when you're living in China. It's like, well, we can't make this happen. Your package can't get shipped any faster. I'm so sorry. Or I'm sorry, we can't get this ticket for you to go to the city or whatever it is. There's no way around it. Or even, anywhere that you live. Sometimes they're like, we don't have a solution for you. And that's what 没办法 is. However, we're not going to translate it word for word. We got to see in context what can work that makes it sound like Lo is speaking. So that's why I've changed it to, I couldn't call more even if I wanted to. I just couldn't, not possible, 没办法. Another one, 感冒了. Yeah, sentence 9, 感冒了，还发烧. Oh, who's sick? So in Chinese, it's obvious, it's still the daughter. But we don't put a she, we don't put daughter again. We just say 感冒了. So in the English, we add that. We say she's got a cold and a fever. I find that's a little bit more natural than got a cold and a fever. So it's tiny. Some of these changes are tiny, but sometimes the changes are a little bit bigger. Let's look at sentence 14. 我这年纪正稳步迈入更年期. 更年期, if you didn't know, is how you say menopause. And I think it's quite strange to suggest that a man is going through menopause, but I guess that joke is funnier in Chinese. So what we do instead is to just say, I'm getting old, which works pretty well because of that first part, 我这年纪. So at this age, we're already talking about old age. But the menopause, we just completely dropped it, because it doesn't work in this story. I find it doesn't make the dialogue funnier or better, it just makes the dialogue awkward. So does anybody have questions about this section that we read or comments that you'd like to mention before we do other stuff?
Michelle, just a comment that I would like to add. That this reminds me of, way back, when I was taking, high school writing classes and things like that. And one of the most important things a teacher ever said to me was, well, it doesn't matter as much as it matters that it's correct. It also matters that people don't stop and think, huh, is that right? Is that what is that about? And I think that the way you've gone about that represents it, I think, really well, right? Because it is, it's a very slight change, but as an English reader, it keeps you in the story rather than you sitting here and thinking, now, why did he say, male menopause? What's that? Is that like, is that a joke I'm not getting? Is that going to be important later? Is that, when it could be a very, one-off thing in the original Chinese?
Yeah. We had an excellent question. Why did you choose this book? This was, I think, the second book that I translated, and I find that there's some pretty good excerpts that are not too difficult in terms of language. Like many of the students, I'm hoping, have heard of 感冒了, and maybe you know 尴尬. Maybe you don't know 没办法 yet, but this is relatively day-to-day language. The first book that I translated was about a med student. So that included like really difficult Latin names for body parts and just all these other things that is not suitable for this kind of talk. So that's the main reason why I chose it, is because I think this little conversation is very everyday, but hopefully still relatable. And you wonder, well, when is Lo Wen gonna come home? When? Right. Okay, so that's translation. The other thing that I do is interpreting. I don't have a slide for that. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute. There we go. So interpreting is spoken. And what happens is we have a Chinese speaker speaking, and then English, and the interpreter will then provide the English. And so I'm hoping, very much hoping, that somebody would be happy to be my volunteer for this. Does anybody want to try interpreting while I tell you about my family? I promise it's easy words. I promise it's easy words.
Anybody feeling confident about their abilities?
Yes. Okay, can we please unmute Rachel?
Absolutely. I will do Rachel and allow to talk. It looks like I can briefly promote her to panelists.
Let's do that. Hi guys.
Whoa.
Excellent. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a sentence in Chinese, and I want you to say a sentence like what I said in English. Brilliant. Can you try to unmute yourself?
I speak Chinese too.
Excellent. All right, one interpreter at a time. Here goes. 这是我爸爸.
That is my dad.
这是我弟弟.
This is your brother.
我爸爸有2条狗.
Your dad has 2 dogs.
我爸爸是美国人.
Your dad is American.
我弟弟是美国人.
Your brother is American.
我是美国人.
You are American.
我们都是美国人.
Everybody is American.
Excellent, round of applause. So that's what an interpreter does. I'll let you chill in the webinar again. You can relax. So no worries. No, you did great. You did great. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Matthew will take care of things. Bingo.
There we go. Drop them right back down.
Okay, so that's what an interpreter does. The way we just did now is called consecutive interpreting. So the speaker takes little breaks and the interpreter says what was just said in the other language. It could be either direction though. It could be Chinese to English. It could be English to Chinese. The other way we can do it is called simultaneous interpreting. So then I'd wear headphones, kind of like what Matt is wearing right now. And as soon as I hear 这是我爸爸, I immediately say, this is my dad. 这是我弟弟, this is my little brother. You have to be a lot faster. You don't get time to take notes or double check. It's just as soon as it comes into your ears, you've got to produce the English. There's no waiting time. And that kind of interpreting is usually used at really big meetings. So think the United Nations, but also big commercial meetings. So I have done that before for like a mobile communications company. And they wanted that meeting to take less time. So simultaneous interpreting takes exactly the same amount of time. And so, yeah, that's a type of interpreting. But you need special equipment, and that's why you don't see it everywhere. You don't normally see it in a school or in other locations. So next, I want to talk about the top 8 highlights of my career doing translation and interpreting with Chinese. Can anybody tell me why I chose 8 and not 10? I mean, top 10 TT. Why would I say the top 8 highlights of my Chinese speaking career? Go ahead, throw it in the chat. Why 8? What's 8 all about? Favorite number. Excellent guess, but no. More guesses, please. Does 8 have any associations with China? I mean, yes, my career is not that long. Fair enough. 8 is less than 10. The reason why I chose 8 is because it's a lucky number in Chinese culture. So 8 is pronounced ba, and it rhymes with fa cai, and that means get rich. So that's a thing that is prosperous, is lucky. 8 is a lucky number in China. Okay, so number 8, we're going to do a countdown. Number 8, I interpreted for a calligraphy artist who spoke both Chinese and Arabic and could also do calligraphy with Arabic writing system and using Chinese characters. He's a really special person and really talented. Number 7, I translated my first book called Beijing, Beijing, and that opened the door for 6 other book translations and a bunch of talks. including going to New York. I got paid to go to New York and talk about that book. So that was a very big highlight. Number 6, I translated the guidebook for the Canton Tower. That's an observation tower in Guangzhou in China. It used to be the tallest building in the world. It is no longer. But that was a really fun and interesting guide to do, a little tourism guide that I assume you can still buy now if you wanted to. Number 6, I met the Brownlee Brothers while interpreting for a Chinese delegation. Now, I think people from England are more likely to know the Brownlee Brothers, but they're both triathletes. They're Olympic medalists. And it was cool to just see them on a training day, like all in their kit, like ready to go. Very cool. Number 4, I interpreted for the Lord Mayor of Manchester. So the town hall is a really beautiful old building. And because I was interpreting for him and the Chinese guest that was coming over, I got to go inside these meeting rooms that you don't normally see if you're just the normal everyday resident or visitor to Manchester. That was really cool. Number 3, I interpreted for 2 Chinese influencers in a swanky London hotel. So again, free trip to London, that was good. And it's also interesting because this event brought influencers from China, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from the United Kingdom, just all these different people talking about shampoo and doing crafts together. It's so interesting to see how their styles were very different and how, because China's a really big country, they had millions more influencers than everybody else. It's just, you feel the power of China in those situations. Number 2, highlight of my career, I translated a business book for a Chinese billionaire. Not kidding. I don't even know how he found me, but he wanted to make sure that his book was well translated. So he flew me out to Shanghai, all the way to China, to see the malls that he has, to see his office, to learn about his personality. And he thought that I would be able to translate the book better. I think that did help. But that's never happened to me before for any other translation project. That was a big deal. And number 1, I interpreted for Max Verstappen, who's a Formula 1 driver. Maybe you've heard of him before. If you haven't, that's okay. But that was a career highlight, to be in the same room as him and to interpret for him. That's really cool. Right. So, well, number 1 was my favorite. Yes. Meeting Max was my favorite. Even, I'm not a hardcore Formula 1 fan, but for that month, I was really into Formula 1. As soon as I knew I had the job, I was really into it. So next, I want to talk about making a career out of Chinese. You might be thinking, maybe I want to do that. When I grow up, I want to do Chinese. Or maybe you're not sure yet. Or maybe, no, you're pretty sure that's not for you. But I just want to tell you some reasons why it would be a good idea. Chinese is a special language, so you can decide to go for one specific field, or you can stay general, because Chinese is rare in the US, but you'll still find enough work. So you could just do medical translation, you could just do legal translation, and then you get paid really, really well because you have this special knowledge and also you have this special language. For me, I do a little bit of legal stuff, a tiny bit of medical interpreting, but also I translate for Vans. I translate, promotional materials about shoes. I translate for gardening and just all kinds of a real mix of stuff. I stay general, and I can do that because I speak Chinese. If you decide to do a language like Spanish or French, it's difficult to do that. It's harder to stand out from the crowd. And so you almost have to specialize to make enough money to be like a freelancer and support yourself. You can also decide to specialize later in your career, right? So you finish college, you're like, cool, I'm going to be a translator. Let's try this. And in the beginning, you just try everything. You say yes all the time. You can do that with Chinese and then gradually figure out what you like. So starting in 2019, I did a lot of interpreting for film directors, and then translation of film directors' essays and stuff. I started learning a lot about the area, and now I'm almost specialized in that just from doing 10 jobs in a row in one area. Another cool thing about Chinese is you can do fun stuff or you can do hard stuff, or again, you can do both. So fun stuff I would count as like anime translation or subtitle translations for a kung fu movie, or anything of that nature, TikTok translation, social media translation. And for hard stuff, that would be legal stuff, contracts, a patent translation. I like to do both. The fun stuff is challenging because you have to be creative. The hard stuff pays better. Whereas the stuff where you have to be creative, surprisingly, doesn't pay as well. So finding a balance is the best way to do it. Sometimes I do television shows. That was fun. There was a Taiwanese lady that went to Paris and she was trying all the pastries of Paris. And for some reason, they wanted to have the subtitles in English for that television show. Sure, yes. I would love to virtually go to Paris. So yeah, a mix. It's a real mix. Another cool thing about making a career out of Chinese is that you can be an in-house translator or you can be a freelance translator. So I've done both. I was a translator in Brussels at the Directorate General for Translation. So I'm looking at all these different documents. Some of them are 4 pages long, some of them are 40 pages long. It was a little dry sometimes, but it was the best paid job I ever had. And I had, paid vacation, all the rest. It was really, really secure and wonderful job. I also worked in Geneva and was a translator there just for patents every single day, patents, patents, patents. It was really hard. I learned a lot. My colleagues were really awesome. I got paid a lot. And in Geneva, I ate all the cheese I could get my hands on. In Brussels, I ate all the croissants, all of them. So both of those experiences were really cool. I'm glad I did them. Right now, I'm a freelancer because, again, I like to do a little bit of shoes and a little bit of gardening and a little bit of trying the pastries in, in Paris TV show type stuff. So, but that's really cool is because Chinese is a language that's used at the United Nations, that's needed. It's such a big language, it's needed at the European Union level, at the European Commission. You can find a really great in-house job. That would be harder to do with a language like Korean, maybe, or some other language. And I think the cool thing about being a translator, right, when you're doing written stuff, is that you can fit it into your schedule. So you could also be a music teacher, or you could also be a yoga instructor and a translator, or you could be a parent, right, and translate when you've got free time in between. All of those things are possible. And it's just really lovely. Then you can still have your own career, but you're doing a mixture of things. And then if one thing drops out, right, you're a yoga instructor, but COVID happens, you still have translation, you still have a good steady source of income. When you start out as a freelancer, you say yes to a lot of things. You might accidentally take a job that's a little bit too hard. You might take a job and really struggle through it. You might never get paid. That's happened to me too. But I think after the first few months, you figure out how it works. And it's really easy, not easy. You get better at sniffing out the clients that are icky. So it doesn't happen as much where you don't get paid. And yeah, you can even increase your rates. And for me, this is my full-time job. I am supporting myself and I'm really happy. I can say no to the stuff I don't like. I can say yes to the stuff that I'm excited about. And that's my job. So I know I've only gone for about 30-ish minutes, but the point is I love to hear from you. So I'm hoping that we can get questions from everybody here. And I will try not to take forever answering them.
While some questions build up in the chat, I have a few things that jumped out at me right at the start. So as somebody that, did a little bit of Chinese and even went over and, taught English, what was that transition like, from going from Carleton to China to, what brought you and then to Europe eventually?
Yeah. So my first day of Chinese class was with a really phenomenal teacher, Mark Hansel, and he conducted the entire class in Chinese, like just a really inspiring teacher. And I was with him every step of the way. It's like, this is my language. This is it. As a kid, I just knew that I wanted to do something international. That's really not a job. But once I was exposed to Chinese, I was just like, yes, more. And then it was kind of figuring out how to make that work. So in Minnesota, kind of on campus. I was used to speaking to teachers who knew how to slow down, who knew how to choose words that I'd be more likely to know. And then I studied abroad in China and realized that, man, certain accents are really hard to understand. But I kept at it, and I moved down to Guangdong, Canton. I moved to Zhuhai, which is a tiny little town where a lot of people speak Cantonese instead of Mandarin. But most people do speak Mandarin with a little bit of a Southern accent. And that was great. I got used to the Southern accent. You hear that accent everywhere in the world, and I'm so used to it, like I don't worry about that accent anymore. So I think it was like once I started teaching English in China, I realized I wanted to do this as a long-term job, and I didn't necessarily see myself as an English teacher forever. So I had to figure out how to make this my forever job. And I figured that a master's that would teach me those skills would be the way to do it. I did apply for the Monterey Institute right out of Carleton. I didn't get in. So that's a lesson, guys. Stick at it. You know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. And so the second year I applied to just different universities. And that's part of the reason as well why I ended up in the UK. It looked like a good program, and they said they wanted me. So, and that's how it got to that. I guess the turning point for me was in China. Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, there we go. We've got another one.
So this is a question from Rachel Black. She wants to know, how long did it take you to learn Chinese? Well, you know, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master, right? I think it took about a year before I could understand someone who wasn't my teacher. So I think that is, you know, a benchmark or something to consider. But that was also with 5 days a week instruction, okay, and quizzes every Friday. So do keep in mind, if you're learning Chinese in high school right now and you only have classes like 2 days a week, or you only get to speak to a teacher that hears your Chinese once or twice a week, then yeah, maybe you're not progressing that fast. Don't worry about that. And then it took me 2.5 years. No, it took me 4 years of being at Carleton, plus 1 year of living abroad before I was good enough to apply for these programs where they expect you to have both perfect English and Chinese so that they can teach you the skill of translation. They don't have time to teach you English if you're a native Chinese speaker. And you don't have time to teach you Chinese if you're a native English speaker. You have to have both of those languages just about perfect. So you can just figure out how to quickly switch between the two, how to find that equivalent, how to double check stuff. So yeah, I mean, I guess that answer then is 5 years before I could use it at work, and 1 year before I could speak to people that weren't my teacher. Two definitions of that question.
Another question from me, actually. So you talked about doing patents. Is there anything that you thought was particularly difficult, like any specific kind of patent? You know, when you see the only thing I can really imagine is, you know, maybe like you get some, you know, complicated chemical process or something like that, and you think, oh geez, now I have to know, you know, what carbon dioxide, all these, you know, fancy carbon dioxide, and people know that one. But
I hear you. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, I think patents scare me every time, but they're the best paid stuff that I do. And because I had a fellowship where I got good feedback, I know how to check my work. I know how to be sure that I got the right word, or I'm not sure yet. I have to keep looking. I did a scientific article just a couple days ago about a transformer, right? So like a power transformer from a big station to wherever else. And it's constant. I was like, it's not chemistry. It won't be as bad. No, it's still awful. I don't have a degree in electrical engineering. So you often do pick stuff that's maybe a little bit scary sometimes, to, I guess, to grow and to keep getting better at the job. But there's also stuff that I just say no to. So finance, I don't understand at all. And if you can't understand it, then you can't translate it. So that's the cutoff point.
And then I guess an extension of that, is there anything that that if it drops in your inbox, you say, yes, I'm doing that, I'll jump right on it. Anything you
Yeah.
really enjoy?
Stuff that I really enjoy is probably short stories. So a long book is a commitment, and it can take about a year. It takes 5 or 6 months for me to do that first draft of translation. And then a number of people have to look at my work and make changes to it. And then I have to accept the change or reject the change. And then again and again and again. So that process is a big commitment, and it usually takes up half of my working hours for that whole time. Whereas a short story, I can really delve into it and look at all the details, imagine that I'm in that world, or just kind of live in that world for the 4 days that I'm translating it. And so when that comes through my inbox, I'm super excited because it doesn't happen very often. But also interpreting, just anything interpreting. So out of the highlights in my career, I think 5 of them or 6 of them are interpreting. And that usually means I get to travel to a place I've never been before, or it means that I get to meet someone who has a very different life than I do, right? Max Verstappen has a very different life than I do. But also somebody who, has a kid with a disability. It might be really interesting to meet them and see how parenting can be so, so difficult. I have so much respect for someone who has multiple kids. One of them has special needs, but the other 2 also have needs. They're kids as well. And to see how they get through things, to help them with the special needs parts of things so that they can be a better parent overall. That's also really gratifying.
All right, I'm gonna see if we can get one more question out of the silent section of our audience here. I'm sure somebody is just sitting there, watching us in bed and thinking, "Oh, geez, I don't need to jump on."
I see a question there. Do you want to read that for me, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. So do you have any advice on preparing for the Chinese AP test?
That's a great question. How do we practice, right? Especially when we can't go abroad. So I have some extra slides for you. I was waiting. Basically, there's no rules for how you should practice. Obviously, if you're studying to a test, get past exams, get mock tests, get as many as you can, beg, borrow, steal. But for getting better at Chinese and just feeling comfortable, ready to take any kind of Chinese test, look for videos and look for stuff to read. So try to find something that's not too long. If it's a video, see if you can watch it 2 or 3 times. Maybe that means it's a 7-minute video. Maybe that means it's a 10-minute video. Try to also find something that's made by native speakers who are talking naturally. So not me, but there are books out there that are designed specifically for learning Chinese that can be a really useful resource. And there's a lot on YouTube. So it's worth looking if you can find something that was originally spoken in Chinese by a Chinese speaker. That's good to practice with. And then we've got a balance that you have to find based on your circumstances, your preferences. So there's free stuff out there. The internet is a big place, but you have to spend time sifting through things. So maybe if the deadline to your test is coming, there's not enough time to sift. And then there's paid things like Mandarin Companion, like the Chairman's Bow, where it's specifically designed for a certain HSK level. And that means you can kind of shortcut the process. You can start really working on those key characters that you need and get better a little bit faster by paying money for a book or a subscription. So if you want to learn how to read or how to get really good at those key characters, I would say spend a little money on a graded reader. This is a concept in learning languages, a graded reader. Rather than trying to read the news where the words are too hard, or trying to find something free online where you might accidentally learn slang. When I was in China, I bought magazines for 1 renminbi, 1 yuan, but you maybe can't do that in the US. So go find a graded reader. The Mandarin Companion is what I was just mentioning. It does readers that are designed to not have too many tricky words, but to still tell you a story. The breakthrough level is shown here. It has 150 unique characters in it. And then level 1 is 300 characters, level 2 is 400 characters, and that's the link for you there. I have used the Secret Garden when I was teaching an adult how to do Chinese, and that's a nice story. It's It keeps you going, because that's the main thing about practicing, is that you don't want to give up. You have to find something that keeps you going. If you like music, that's a way to learn Chinese. Try to find silly songs like the Stinky Tofu song. I don't know if anybody's come across it yet, but it's hilarious. Also, the Rebecca Black song translated into Chinese. 星期五,星期五,大家都很想跳舞. Okay, it's great. It's all words you probably know already. If you like cooking, go straight to YouTube and look for 小高姐的 magic ingredients. That's what her channel looks like. There are subtitles in Chinese sometimes, and you can turn them on or off, which is helpful. And some of her videos have subtitles in English. Quality is so-so. I don't like cooking. I really don't. But I like watching this person cook. So again, if that is something that grabs you, if that's something where you can watch multiple videos in a row, that's a good way to start practicing. You might not come across that in the AP test, but just use it to keep you going, to keep you checking dictionaries, asking questions to your teacher. If you like yoga, this person is relatively new, Alison Wang. Alison Wang, that's her full name, and that's what her channel looks like. Some of her videos have subtitles, some don't. There's 2 recommended links there. Matthew will make sure everybody gets those links when he sends the PPT through. And then there's another like specific yoga class where she does all the moves with you, but she describes everything in Chinese. So you can do the movements by looking at her or by listening to her say downward dog, her say hands here, feet here. It's really good for practicing your body parts and movement. Maybe you like pets, in which case you should look for 国庆出去浪. 2 recommended videos there. All the videos have Chinese subtitles. They're burned in, and it's a little bit more like humorous and slang and stuff. But again, if it's fun, worth it. It's totally natural. They're filming in China. It's fun stuff. Some videos also have English subtitles. English is so-so. It's worth a try. If you like yoga and pets, you can watch this video where a woman does yoga and her dog interrupts her. So there's lots of free stuff out there, even if you like teeth, okay? I had to interpret at a dentist, and I needed to know more about gingivitis. So I found Dr. Grace. She's based in the US, so sometimes she'll put English into her stuff, but most of her videos are in Chinese. There's no subtitles though, so that gets very scary and technical. That's maybe for later, after you've watched all the dog videos. Right, I see 2 more questions in the chat. I don't want to miss that. Yes, when and how you start learning Chinese, intensive studies. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Do, for that question. So I started learning Chinese, I guess, directly, intensively. So from my first class, I was doing classes 5 days a week, 1 hour a day. I guess it's fair to say I'm bilingual German-English. So I had already learned a second language at home, but it's not really related to Chinese. I think that just helps with absorbing foreign languages. You've had one before, you know that there can be slightly different terms out there. But yeah, so for me, it wasn't a transition. I was not young enough to get a good accent from the beginning, but I had a good ear thanks to learning musical instruments, and tones were okay for me. For whatever reason, tones were okay. So it's just a question of getting lots of exposure. And for me, I was very lucky. At Carleton College, we had 4 teachers who spoke Chinese. Then we had 2 language assistants, one from mainland China, one from Taiwan. And so anytime I had a question, it's just go find those people, see who has a minute for you and who can explain. How do you say bless you if somebody sneezes? Oh, you mean nobody says bless you in China? That's not a thing. Okay. How do you say I wish you health if you felt like saying it anyway? And then we learn. We just keep going and going. So it's different. If you're learning at the high school level, you might not have 6 different adults to help you learn Chinese. You might need a tutor, or you might need to find a friend who is willing to give you time, maybe. You might need to pay for extra lessons. I don't know. It depends a little bit if you're learning at the high school level.
So Michelle, we're coming up on the hour. I usually like to cut off right at that hour, because I know people generally, they've got things to do with their Saturday, and I'm sure you've got places you'd also love to be. As fun as this is, do you have any parting words of inspiration for any Chinese educators, students, maybe some people that haven't even started their Chinese language journey that are looking to start?
Yeah, I would say keep at it. It's so fun. It's so different, but also it just unlocks so many worlds, so many possibilities if you can get your Chinese to just a little bit of a higher level, right? So that could be living in China. For me, that was living in Switzerland, right? It's just so many different places where Chinese is needed. And yes, you can't make a job out of it. It can be your full-time real life job. So it's worth the effort. Every minute you put in, it's worth it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I would ask for a round of applause if we were in a lecture hall or something, but I'll just give a quick one here. Thank you so much for coming. To the rest of our attendees and to you, Michelle, if you'd like to join us on subsequent meetings. We are, other than today, we are every Thursday at 7 p.m. US standard or Central Time. So feel free to join in. This is the same webinar link will work every week unless something goes wrong. And there will be an email, a reminder email, and a wrap up coming from Dr. Frank Dolce or myself with some of the materials that Michelle has shared, and so that everybody can get their hands on those resources, especially those last couple slides, because that's really, really good stuff, right?
Just for fun. It's you got to find your way to learn Chinese. It's going to be a little different for everybody. Yeah. All
right. Well, thank you very much. And everybody have a lovely evening, afternoon, morning, even if you're really calling in from China or, way out east. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.